Welcome to Paranormal Heart Podcast with host Kat Ward. Hello, everyone. Welcome, my friends, to Paranormal Heart Podcast. Tonight's segment is pre-recorded as usual, streaming on United Public Radio Network, 107.7 New Orleans. I'm your host, Kat Ward. Before I introduce my special guest, I'd like to thank all of you in taking the time out of your busy lives to listen to the show from wherever you are. I really do appreciate you all. And I have to add this as well. Paranormal Heart Podcast is for entertainment purposes only. All information shared in this podcast is not professional advice. The views and opinions expressed on Paranormal Heart Podcast are not necessarily those of the show host, network, or producers. With that being said, my special guest tonight is Arianne French. Arianne, or Arianne, if you don't speak French, is from the East Coast of Canada. She has a passion for the arts, horror, true crime, and folklore. Right up my alley. And an explorer at heart, she's discovered a few urban legend gems in her area. She's also a semi-retired model. You can follow her on Instagram at Arianne, that's ARIANNE_French. She has plans to launch her own YouTube channel in the upcoming months, and I can't wait for that. So tonight, Arianne will discuss an urban legend from Hillsborough, New Brunswick, Canada. It's the Gray's Island statue. So please help me welcome Arianne. Hello.
Happy to be here. Whoop, whoop.
Yeah, I'm happy too. And my listeners know that I love all my guests, but I'm partial to Canadians, especially from the ones from my neck of the woods originally. So thank you.
We're a cool bunch over here. We got cool stories.
Yeah, we do. We do. And I don't think a lot of people realize that the East Coast of Canada has a lot of stories.
Yeah, it's a very old part of Canada. There was a lot of very old villages and communities. I mean, Acadians showed up here in 1755. So yeah, we've been here a while. We got cool stories accumulated. I keep finding more. So
that's awesome.
Mm.
Yeah. So please before we get on to the story, tell us how you got into all these urban legends and everything.
Honestly, it's from my childhood. I've always been a spooky kid a little bit, but my mom and I would often go for day drives, Sunday drives, things like that. And I think it became more of a thing we looked for when we moved to the north. When we moved to the Yukon, there was a lot of weird stories up there. So
Who knew?
and like super interesting stuff and interesting places to see. So that became a little bit of a thing that we got into. And then when I moved back to the East Coast, I got into geocaching.
Yep.
For a while, and that takes you interesting places. And I already knew of a couple urban legends before, but through geocaching I found more. So that's all things that I hope to talk about in my YouTube channel this upcoming year. I have a few stories that I know are almost unknown to some degree.
Mm-hmm.
And even if we're going to talk true crime, there's a lot of missing people here that I feel never had a proper voice, or, maybe the case is really old and it's just been tucked away, and I feel it deserves to be talked about, and not many people talk about the East Coast. So I'm going to dive into it, I think. So
awesome. It's exciting for me. I hope it's exciting for my listeners too. But before we get on with that, I just want to mention to all you listeners, I would absolutely love, wherever you are on our planet, please send me your local urban legends. It's so interesting for me to hear. And if you want me to read them on the show, I will. If you want to be on the show to talk about them, I will. But I think it would be really interesting to find out global urban legends. So please, the email paranormalheart13@gmail.com.
Yeah, there's something everywhere. There's an urban legend everywhere. So
yes, there is.
Yeah. Yeah, and this one's interesting for sure.
So Gray's Island in Hillsborough, New Brunswick.
Yeah, it's about 20 minutes out of town. You turn onto this dirt road, and it's like at the bottom of a hill. You can so easily miss it. So I think that's why a lot of people who are not like super duper local have no clue.
Okay.
Drive down this long road, and all of a sudden there's a brick arch and like a metal gate, like super old, spooky style too. And it opens up and you drive up and there's beautiful big trees and it's really a beautiful cemetery. It's my favorite one in town or in the area just for the sake of the beauty of it.
Mhm.
So you drive, and at the very end of driving through the cemetery, you can see a statue to your left of a headless woman. Um, a lot of people assume that it represents the Virgin Mary. Um, but as we learn the story, it does not. It has represented a few different things, and I got to the bottom of the real story
Nice.
thanks to a recent um thing that happened with the story. So we'll get to that a
Oh,
little
yes.
later. I'll save the secret.
Yes.
So yeah, the cemetery was established in 1825. And
Hmm.
I think it was only like because it can be established and then like sworn in or something like that, and in the or early 1900 something. Um, yeah, and the story goes that a husband lost his wife.
Mhm.
He was grieving so much that he had a statue made in her likeness in the
Mm.
cemetery. And he would often be seen sitting at the foot of it and like talking to her. And what was odd is people noticed that he would pause as if listening for a reply.
Oh.
So there were rumors that he could hear her, that he had conversations with her. And after years of him sitting by the foot of the statue, people came to the cemetery one day and he had passed away at
Mm.
the foot of the statue.
Oh, no.
So,
That's
yeah,
devotion.
that's the story that I had heard, that a lot of people have heard over the years, some variations of it, but
Mhm.
it's always the old man that had the statue made for his wife, right? So
Mhm.
then kids, teenagers happened that started to go visit the site because of, it was kind of eerie a little bit. And there were rumors that she was haunted, and there were rumors that people could see like her eyes would either turn to diamonds or have blood coming out of her eyes,
Oh,
things
wow.
like that. Um, yeah, I think that's teenagers, and
Yeah.
sometimes that's what happens when you get spooked at the cemetery.
Yeah.
And then, like, the famous legend too is that if you walked around the statue, variations again, 3 or 7 times or whatever, backwards or counterclockwise or whatever,
Hmm.
and then you would stand backwards to her, she would tap you on the shoulder.
Oh, that would be creepy.
Many people have experienced this.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's creepy, but it's something that I would want to experience.
No, right? Over the years, because of all of these, stories, eventually the head of the statue went missing. I cannot find the date exactly of when the statue went missing. It just happened. And
Mhm.
I think at a time that social media didn't exist, it didn't make the local news
Yeah.
group on Facebook, so had no way of knowing. But yeah, like the head went missing. The way that the hands are placed, if you want to share a picture of the statue or whatever, the way the hands are placed, one of the hands was also removed. The other one is like tucked. So that was the hand that people said tapped your shoulder.
Ah.
So the head and the hand both went missing over the years. So she stood headless in the cemetery for over 2 decades.
Wow.
Yeah.
I wonder how
Um,
it would I wonder how those parts were removed.
it is very hard to say because I'm
Yeah.
no expert in that.
Yeah.
um, and like I thought that the hand went missing first because the cut of the hand to me looked older than the cut of the head,
Okay.
which would have made sense because from what I've heard and also through another documentary I worked on, I got the chance to interview these older gentlemen at
Mhm.
a local tavern. Um, these guys were teens in the 70s, so they they knew the legend back then.
Yeah.
So this is one of the oldest legends I can find in the Moncton area is Gray's
Oh,
Island.
that's awesome.
Yeah, it goes back to the 60s as far as my interactions with people, as far as I've known.
Yeah.
So yeah, and the guys remember going there as teens. So
That's amazing. Yeah,
yeah,
like I said, I'm from there, and I don't ever recall hearing about it.
it's another one that I feel like has died down between generations, maybe a little
Mhm.
bit. And like if your parents didn't go as a teenager, then you would have never heard it either. And
Yeah.
I just so happened to hear about it because I was a bit of a frequenter of the tavern where the older gentlemen hang out. So I ended up hearing about it. I
Yeah.
was taken there by some friends. Oh, I must have been in my teen years.
Mhm.
And not all of us had cars. We were kind of the gang that you need a car to go out there. So I
Yeah.
don't even remember who I went with. But yeah, and like my mom and I have gone over the years as well because my mom likes the drive into the cemetery. It's kind
Mm.
of beautiful.
Hmm.
There's right past the cemetery, there's a road that goes kind of behind, and then back there is the Chocolate River,
Oh, yeah.
um,
The Petticoat,
which in itself has so much history, the ships that came through that river and stuff. So that's interesting, and that's another one that I want to go and look into if there's any like ghost ship stories
Yeah,
around.
that would be amazing. Because I remember my grandfather telling me that I don't think it was him per se, but he knew of people that used to surf the Petticodiac River. It used to be
They
clean
still
back then.
do.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They
yeah, it
do you
has
think they
been a
do now?
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's
Wow.
really cool that they did it back then too, though.
I know. Yeah.
Yeah. I wouldn't get in that water.
No.
It just doesn't look pretty.
No. For
No.
those of you who wonder why we call it the Chocolate River, it's pretty much because it was very, very muddy. But
Mm.
um, yeah, so and it gave it kind of a brown hue to the water, so that's why we called it the
It
Chocolate
looks like
River.
hot chocolate.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
more than chocolate milk, it looks like a hot chocolate. Like,
yeah. And then
yeah.
there's a very well-known, oh, the tidal bore. I think there's
Yeah.
only 2 of them in the entire world, and one of them is in Moncton. So it's really neat. You can
Mhm.
tell when it's about to arrive because the seagulls are just following the
Yeah, that's true. The
tidal bore.
birds.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah. And out in Hillsborough is one of the highest tides in the world that happens too. So, I mean, it's a very interesting and old area as well, Hillsborough. Like,
It is.
um, as I was digging through this, I came across a few other odd stories that I was like, wow, like that's an old story and that's
Mhm.
interesting. So, yeah, and the cemetery, from what I understand, also has a lot of veterans who are
Oh.
buried there. A lot of Steves. Um, and that's what the marble statue name underneath
Mhm.
says. It's the last name Steves. And there was a couple other last names. I forget now, but you can tell there's a like a big bunch together. So it's probably all the descendants of one family.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
interesting. I
Yeah, it's
definitely next
very
time I
neat.
go home, I have to go check it out because I love
Oh
old
yeah.
cemeteries.
You would love this one, and like you can keep going and you can get to the my cat might make an appearance
Okay.
again. You can keep going and you get to these old silos that were like the rock silos or something like that. They kept rocks in there.
Hmm.
It's been abandoned for years, but it's kind of neat. There's graffiti and it's like grungy and cool, but
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and it's just further down from the cemetery. So yeah,
So,
very neat.
I just wanna get back to the tavern for a second.
Mhm.
Where is that located? Is it Hillsborough, Moncton, Dieppe?
The tavern is in Moncton, and
Okay.
it's the oldest running tavern in New Brunswick. It's called the Chris Rock Tavern,
I thought that's where
and
it was. Yeah.
yeah, and awesome chicken burgers, by the way.
Oh, wow. To check
The
that out too.
food is really great.
Yeah.
And yeah, like the old dudes there have really cool stories,
Mhm.
and they've been regulars there since the 70s. Like one of the guys we talked to, he worked at the Chris Rock in 1972.
Oh,
So
wow. Yeah.
yeah, and he was the one that told us his version of the Gray's Island statue as well. So yeah, because I had heard about the tapping on the shoulder, but I hadn't heard about the eyes. And
Yeah.
yeah, like it is kind of weird because even though she didn't have a head for so long, you still felt like she was watching you.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, like it was eerie. You'd go there and it'd be like, she don't have eyes, but she can see me. She can see me.
Oh yeah.
So
Yeah.
definitely spooky. And the statue had gotten very dirty over the years too, right? So
Yeah.
it added that like ugh, kind of vibe. You can tell she was once pretty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How tall is it? Like human size?
It's a lot shorter. The portion of the ground, because there is a big cement sort of flap and then she's on top, right? And that
Mhm.
like it does bring her to be very tall. Um, if I were to go and stand next to her, I'm at least like a foot and a half taller than her and I'm 5'9". So I
Okay.
want to say she's probably like maybe just under 5'7".
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, on top of the big cement thing. And a lot of people leave coins there too.
Oh,
You know,
interesting.
I've seen dimes and nickels and quarters, when I've gone.
Have you ever looked to see what the years were?
Yes, and they're all recent.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, it's all very recent stuff, so it's like, okay. So I think that's a newer thing people are doing maybe
Mhm.
to pay respects.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. 'Cause yeah,
Mm.
like, I've never seen anything there out of the ordinary that, like, physically would have been oh, yeah, see, there she is.
It's all about me.
Yes, of course, you want to have your appearance. You're famous.
You're
You're
famous,
famous.
yeah.
So, yeah, she,
So no beer bottles or anything like that, because a lot of places for urban legends, at least when I was a teenager, a lot of times, you'd get a whole bunch of friends together, packed into a
yeah,
car, and some would be drinking, it's like that here in Ontario
yeah.
too.
There are groundskeepers at the
Okay,
cemetery that
good.
do keep a really good eye on the place. The cat's really trying to settle down here. Girly, no. So, there has been a couple incidents of, like, mild vandalism that I call because they didn't break anything, they just kind of drove in places they shouldn't have. Like,
Okay.
there is a clear road, and they kind of, like their tires ruined a bit of the grass at a couple spots, so
Mhm.
that, that was an annoyance for the groundskeepers for
I can
sure.
imagine, yeah.
Yeah, and, like, it's just not cool, you know? It's not cool.
Yeah, people, please, if you go check out urban legends, please be respectful, because people are buried there and, just please be respectful.
Yeah, and loved ones come visit, and it's not cool that the place doesn't feel serene and peaceful. It
Yeah.
needs to have that, you
I
know?
know, I'd be really angry if I went to see my mom, and there was, like, tire marks or whatever all over the place. I'd be like,
Yeah.
"What?"
Yeah, yeah. So it
Yeah,
definitely wasn't cool, it was disrespectful.
yeah.
I nothing's ever that I know of has been broken though, so, like, I try to look at the positive. And, like, there is a garbage can on site as well.
Okay, good.
Um, so yeah, like, there was one incident of vandalism like that, and, you see right now the cemetery is closed, I think, until the end of March
Mhm,
for winter, so it's permanently locked.
mhm.
Um, but yeah, after, after over 2 decades, back in, 2021? Yeah, in 2021,
Hmm,
the head reappeared.
that's
So,
interesting. Was it
yeah,
attached to the statue somehow, or was it just left next to it?
the groundkeepers showed up and it was left next to it.
Wow.
Yeah. No hand, just a head. And I think that further confirms for me personally that the hand probably went missing before and that's long gone. Like we'll
Yeah,
never find that. Um, and the head afterwards, and it clearly wasn't the groundskeepers or whatever because
mhm.
you know. Um, so yeah, it was returned anonymously. Nobody knows by who. There's no cameras out there.
Yeah.
So there's no way of knowing. And then like obviously when that first surfaced, Facebook went crazy. All the the Facebook groups that are local news or whatever. A lot of stories came up blaming so and so's son for potentially taking it years ago, and
Mm-hmm.
now it's found, and all of that. But it
Somebody's
made
attic, maybe.
yeah, yeah, that's what I said. I was like,
Yep.
someone's parents either passed away and they're emptying the house and found this, and the parents
Mhm.
never even knew it was stashed there, type of deal. It sounds
Yeah.
like a teenager thing to do. So
Kind of like when I was younger and I went to a local urban legend in Moncton as well and took a piece of the gravestone that
yeah,
because it was shattered and I freaked out and brought it back. I brought it
yeah,
back.
yeah, yeah. So it's better to leave that stuff where it
Yeah,
belongs.
stupid teens, you know. But
Yeah,
if,
we think
if
it's like cool and spooky, but
yeah, if you happen to be listening, whoever brought the head back, thank you very much.
yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I hope the hand will show up too. Maybe.
Maybe someday. Yeah, yeah. They restored the head and cleaned up the statue really well, and the head is damaged a little bit. Like there's the nose is basically gone, and
Okay.
I think there's like a portion of the forehead that's been like chipped off a little bit.
Okay.
But yeah, like with the head coming back, the real story came out. So that's always interesting too. When you know 30 years down the road, there's something that changes the story or tells the original, the real story.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it turns out there was no husband, there was no wife.
Oh,
That's an urban legend.
okay.
Yeah. The real story is like kind of just as sad. Honestly,
Oh,
it, it made me sad almost more because I knew that that was now the real story.
yeah.
So yeah, apparently what happened was this young girl, who was 15, her name was Jenny Steves. She passed away of an illness. She had traveled from London to here to come back to her family. And when she arrived home, she was very, very sick.
Mm.
She died of tuberculosis. Her obituary said that she was very kind. She had a gentle spirit, which I thought was just so sweet.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, she was born in 1985 and died in 1900.
You mean
And in
1885?
uh,
You said 19.
1895
Yeah,
or
you said
1885.
1985. Yeah.
Yeah, 1885 and 1900 is when she
Well, that
died.
would have been a spooky story in itself.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
She time traveled.
Yeah.
No. Yeah, and like 30 years later, her mother had the statue made.
Okay.
Yeah, and it was this like fancy marble statue, and her mother even made the news when the the piece of marble arrived to town. She said that it was probably the heaviest thing she had ever seen.
Mhm.
So, yeah, the statue was made and it was put there in honor of Jenny Steves. And like, yeah, for a little while, from what I understood, when the urban legend really, really first surfaced, they were talking about her. They were saying it was, so and so's daughter. Um, and that was the legend. And I don't know when it changed to this grieving husband story. I
Yeah.
can't find the origin of why that story started to happen.
Well,
So
it's like
yeah,
another urban legend in the Moncton area that I won't mention. When I
yeah,
was a teenager, I was everybody said that she was struck by a car. Well, back in the 1800s when this person lived, there were no cars in the Moncton area, so that like no, it wasn't. So it's interesting how urban legends. Like I love urban legends, but I also like to know the real story behind it too. But it's
yeah,
interesting how the legend just morphs over
it
time.
does. And sometimes it's morphs in very simple ways, like she taps you on the shoulder or her eyes bleed, and then
Yep.
sometimes it's like two entirely different stories that have no connection to
Yeah.
each other. The grieving husband and like the dying child, two completely different stories, right? Like, yeah, and like from what I opened up my some of the websites that I found information on, um, there's no year or anything like that for this potential husband story
Okay.
compared to Jenny Steves. There's an obituary, there's, news that her mother made the newspaper back then. So there's like a lot there that proves that this is Jenny Steves' statue made in her likeness a little bit. So the statue's not the Virgin Mary either, and it's not somebody's wife, it's Jenny. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Imagine the logistics back then trying to bring that great big piece of marble, and the cost
Yeah.
must have been
Yeah.
I can't even imagine. Now do you
Yeah.
know who did you ever find out who sculpted the statue?
No,
Hmm,
that was not mentioned. No, I couldn't find that. And yeah, when because her mother was interviewed, her name was Laura. When Laura was interviewed about it, she just talked about how heavy it was and how she felt uh she felt really good about being able to do this for her family, and that like she kind of called it in a sort of way without saying it, like she felt like it would be something that people can admire as well.
mhm,
And funny enough, it kind of did become that. People go to Gray's Island to see her. So,
hmm.
to this day, like, it's wild. It's super cool to me that people go out of their way to see Jenny. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, it's like
yeah.
that with a lot of these legends, people will go out of their way to find out where the source of the legend was. It's just
Oh,
amazing.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, and like in my research, I found really interesting YouTube videos. Um, I found a guy who did a short film. It's barely 2 minutes, but it's great, and it's got a little twist of his probably own imagination in there.
yeah.
I loved his short film. That was very cute.
I'm gonna have to look
Um,
at that. I know you sent it to me, and I didn't get a chance to look at it yet.
yeah, look it up. It's super cute, and like, there's been paranormal investigators that have gone. Um, some of them I felt was a little bit cheesy, just because it's like, if you would have done your research, then you couldn't be saying all these things because you'd know it's very inaccurate. So if you want to talk to Jenny, but
Mhm.
don't go there and oh, okay. Don't
Little fuzzy
go
butt.
there and make up stuff, you know?
Yeah.
She's very intrigued in this right now. The
For
cat
those of
is
you listening to
investigating.
the audio version, her black cat keeps walking in front of the camera,
Yeah.
showing off her little fuzzy butt.
She's getting used to my new office, I think,
Okay,
because this has been a new setup.
okay.
And I think she thinks she's, the queen of the house in general, but now it's like, okay,
Oh,
well, now I have an office.
yeah,
So
and you're her assistant.
I'm the assistant. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. And she'll lay on my notes and stuff. So, who
yeah,
needs notes?
yeah. That's funny. Yeah,
Yeah.
I find a lot of that, with some paranormal investigators, they don't necessarily, do research before they go investigating locations like this. Some of them
Mhm.
just go. I know when I used to do the investigations, I would like to go in blind. I didn't want to find out any or at least too much information because I didn't wanna, put ideas in my head saying, "Oh, I
Yeah.
think I heard this," but somebody
Yeah.
on the
And I
team
can
would.
understand that side of,
Yeah,
the coin
yeah.
too. Yeah. Yeah.
But there was always somebody on the team who knew and would not share it with us. And then
Oh,
somebody yeah, she would research everything. She's kind of like, the team
and then
historian, so
take
she would
that
look into
away.
things. Yep, and she wouldn't say anything, and if somebody on the team would say something, she'd say, "Yep, you're right."
Okay.
And it's like, "Okay,
Yeah.
cool," or "Nope, I didn't find that," or yeah, so,
I don't know if these girls had that.
yeah.
What's interesting to me is like I feel like maybe that method wouldn't be, or going in blind without an assistant who has info. It's a cemetery. So
Yeah.
who knows who you gonna pop up, who is gonna come and give you messages, you
Oh,
know?
yes.
There's a lot of other people there. So
Mhm.
it could be Jenny, could be a ray of other people. So, you know, yeah, maybe having somebody with knowledge who can confirm or deny or whatever, but
Yeah.
no.
Yeah, we've
Yeah.
been on many. Well, one investigation in particular, we went to this big warehouse, and not too far there was a cemetery. And the lead investigator, she's very, very gifted. I've never seen anybody so talented when it comes to mediumship before. And because I usually take it with a grain of salt, but this girl's totally legit. And she'd be picking up spirits from the cemetery that wasn't too far from where we were investigating because they knew that she could see and hear them. So they're like, "Oh boy, let's go say hi." And then she's like, "No, no, I'm here to investigate this location. Nice to meet you." But
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
that does happen. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So like I feel it's good to have somebody who's got the stories, you know. And
Yeah.
I personally love the research of these stories. I
Mhm.
love finding what's adds up, what doesn't, what info might be missing, you know, interviewing the locals. I love that. For some legends, I wouldn't necessarily interview the locals because I've found that some locals don't always like these legends. So
Yep.
you gotta play it safe.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, like I like to deep dive and stuff. And one of the stories I want to research next for my channel, I have a feeling I'm not gonna find much, and it's very sad, even though it happened a long time ago. Like I understand,
Mhm.
but it's the Lost Girls of Havelock, and
Oh.
that's a geocaching find. And that day, oddly enough, we were just driving, my son's father and I, and we used to geocache all the time. And I see one that's like out in the middle of nowhere, and I'm just like, "Do we have time to go to this road?" And he's like, "Yeah, doable. Let's go." So out on the Sunday drives we go and
Mhm.
go find this one, and it has stayed with me ever since. Like I can't wait to go see her again or see them or go to the location.
Yeah.
Even though the girls are not, it's not a grave site. It's not, but there's a plaque for the girls, and I feel like I don't
Yeah.
know. It's a great location. It's beautiful.
Hmm.
I'll send you pictures, Kat, when I go
Yeah.
next.
I look
Yeah,
forward to that. Yeah, that's awesome. Now,
yeah.
the Grays Island, is it an actual island or was it an island? How do you get there?
I think it's called an island because it's basically in the middle of a swamp. So
Okay.
you drive down this road and it's swampy on both sides, and also kind of one side I believe used to be like a farm.
Mhm.
And now the house that's there like doesn't really have a farm anymore. They have like a small, I think they got like one goat, but
Oh,
there used to be like a big barn and stuff.
okay,
It's
yeah.
the cutest little house too, right? Like you turn on this road, there's one little house. It's the cutest thing, you know, wrap around porch and everything. And then you just keep
Oh,
going down this road, like yeah, and then it's like open fields on both sides, and the water is like right after the cemetery. So
hmm.
it feels kind of like an island. It does.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
I
And I
went
assume,
Go ahead.
yes, go.
No, no, go ahead.
Oh. I assume that maybe the road used to flood.
Probably, yeah,
It,
if it's swampy. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I don't think it does anymore, but I think there once was a time where it might have been a flooding area, which again made it look even more like an island, right?
Yeah,
So,
probably, yeah. No, it just
yeah.
makes me wonder if the house that's there, if they've ever had any paranormal activity from the cemetery.
I was very curious too, and it was up for sale.
Hmm.
I want to say like during the pandemic.
Mhm.
Yeah, maybe 2021 or 2022. I
Okay.
did a photo shoot at the cemetery um, in a clown outfit, which was super cool.
Oh,
Yeah, and at the time, the house I think had just been put on the market, and so I was like, "Oh, what I would give to go visit inside of that house." Like, I almost wanna book a viewing just to view, you
I
know?
know, right?
I
Yeah.
just wanna see it because 'cause it's got, like it could easily have the spooky vibe,
Yep.
but it's almost a peaceful, like, thing about it that's, like, the protector of Gray's Island or something, like
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, there's a calmness. You turn on that road and it's like all sound goes away. And usually
Oh.
when you don't know where you're going, you turn and you turn the music down and it's like all of a sudden very quiet.
Mhm.
And when you get inside the cemetery, it's always just silence.
Oh.
Yeah, and I always feel very at peace there. I feel like it's super serene and
Mhm.
just calm. And I've been there in the middle of the night. I've been there during the day, and it's always the same calm feeling. I don't know if it's because I generally feel very calm in cemeteries.
I
I
do
just,
too.
yeah, I have a very interesting view of death that I don't think everybody is always comfortable with. Like, I'm not
Same.
scared of dying. I'm not, it's not something that bothers me. Like,
Me either.
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
scared of how I'm gonna die, but I'm not afraid of dying.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm scared of the potential pain. I don't want to be in pain. I
Yeah.
don't want it to linger or,
Yeah.
nobody wants to die a crappy way, but it's inevitable. We're all gonna go there. We're all gonna That's the destination, you
Mhm.
know, into another chapter that we don't know really anything about to some degree. So,
Yeah, exactly, because paranormal investigating is just pure speculation, unless you have abilities and you can sense things, but there's a lot of people are like, "Well, you still can't prove what you're sensing," but it's like, "Well, I know what I'm sensing, and I know it's real," but yeah,
yeah, and there's
scientifically, a lot of
definitely
times you
been
just
times yeah, there's been times where the vibe's off and everybody feels
Mhm.
that. Everybody
Yeah.
has a gut instinct that we kind of can't explain.
Mhm.
And sometimes when you really listen to it, that's when things start to happen differently to you.
Yep.
And I say that a lot. I unfortunately have, a lot of women friends who have gone through abusive relationships.
Oh,
And
yeah.
that's the thing I tell them, that your gut is telling you something, you know, it's time to listen. And once you do, and you start to listen at everything, it always
Mhm.
adds up. So, and I feel like that applies to sort of paranormal investigating as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
A lot of people refer to it as kind of like your animalistic instincts.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that's something that humans have lost
Yeah.
for the most
Yeah.
part, yeah.
Yeah. And like, I also have noticed through going to spooky places, um, people sometimes will quickly go into fight or flight or freeze. And I see friends book it to the car, instantly, I'm out of here. Like, so
Yeah.
that makes me giggle sometimes, but I can tell, like, that's an energy going through them that's telling them, get out, I'm out, I don't, like,
Yep.
and then sometimes they freeze. And so, yeah, and it's so easy to spook people in those moments too, and I've been guilty of doing that to some friends. 'Cause, like, we weren't doing a real investigation, but, like, you discreetly pick up a rock, and when it's really silent, you throw it, and they're all so then, yeah, I was the ghost that day, it was me.
We have a local urban legend here in Ontario called, Buck Hill, and, I think I mentioned it to you before, I know the listeners have heard it before, I'll just quickly mention it.
Yeah,
It's this hill that there's a couple of houses at the foot of the hill, and then, there's just trees on the other side, and there's no lights, it's just black as black. If there's no light source, you can't see your hand in front of your face,
yeah,
just really
yeah.
dark, and I guess in the 1800s, it was, a lumberjack guy that him and his wife and daughter and their dog lived in the cabin, and it was wintertime, and the dog got out, and the little girl went to look for her, and the father came back, and the mother's like, she went looking for the dog. Well, he spent the rest of his life looking for her and never found her.
Oh,
So yeah, so the legend has it that if you park your car on the hill, facing down the hill, and you flash your lights 3 times and say, "Daddy, Daddy, Daddy," you're going to see the green light of the father's lantern still looking for her. I have seen the
oh,
green light. Um, don't know if it probably was him because it is you can sense it when you go there. It's just there is something there, but I lost my train of thought. Right. So the team was there, and then it's another one of those local places where people like to go and drink. The police actually patrol it often just because they know that it's a local
and it
spot.
is a road too,
Yes,
yeah.
yes, yeah. Bunch of people showed up, and they're like, "Oh, what are y'all doing?" And we're like, "Well, we're a paranormal investigative team, and we're just investigating Bug Hill." And they're like, "Oh, can we partake?" And we're like, "Yeah, sure." So at one point, like they're spooked out, right? They're really, really spooked out. And at one point, I had the video camera and I had one of my team members next to me, and I'm like, part of me really just wants to go, just scream loud and scare the crap out of them. But there was one guy that was already on edge. One of our pieces of equipment mentioned his name, and he's like, "Oh
God.
hell no!" He's just like, "Oh yeah, it was really funny," but
Poor guy. Yeah.
oh yeah, it's like, and then my team member's like, "Well, we can't spook the norms."
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
No. They'll carry that urban legend and make something else out of it.
Oh yeah, probably yeah. Because if the paranormal team screams, there's got to be something there, you know.
Of course, they're the professionals here.
But it's like, no, we just want to mess with people, but we
Yeah.
don't.
Yeah.
Not that we don't want to sometimes, but yeah.
Sometimes you don't have to do anything either. You just bring them there.
Yeah.
And that's enough. Yeah. Like the
Yeah.
night that we visited that other grave location, one of our team members was she would have freaked out at anything. So she's funny to go out on location with because she gets scared just if a leaf blows over a little funny, so it's like it amps the vibe too. Like so, and funny enough, she was my photographer when we shot at Great Island. So
Yeah, that is funny.
I haven't gone there with her at night. I'm sure she would handle it much differently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Too funny. Yeah, we've had investigations too where we went to a public residence, and one of the team members worked with this lady. And so we're one of the ladies on the team, she just likes to walk around. She'll literally take hundreds of photos, just hundreds. And so you never know where she's going to pop up, right? So next thing you know, she's standing next to me and then the client, and she just went, boo. That woman, oh my God, that poor lady. She laughed about it after, but and then she's like, I have to go outside for a smoke. And we're just,
Yeah,
and she's
I
like,
need
yeah,
the fresh air.
yeah, she's like, I'm sorry, I didn't think you would react that way, Luckily it was someone that she knew, but it's like, she kind of felt bad, but it was funny.
No. It's
Only
wild
funny
how
now.
easily people get spooked, and some people come to my house and don't like it.
Oh, wow.
I have weird stuff. Actually, I was gonna bring her out. I'll go get her. I'll
Please,
go.
yeah. So while we wait for Arianne to come back, again, if you have any local urban legends, please send it to me. Tell me your stories wherever you are in the world. It's so fascinating. So paranormalheart13@gmail.com. We want to know what your urban legend is in your area.
Okay, so this is my dear friend Marjorie.
Oh, it's a doll. How old is she?
I'm not sure, but I have a feeling that she was always very youthful. I've owned her now for almost 3 years. I found her at a restore store, so it's furniture mostly.
Yeah.
But there was a box of dolls. I paid barely $4 for Marjorie.
Wow.
But I was not leaving her there. No, ma'am.
She is beautiful. Wow. For those of you who don't know French accents, her name is Marjorie. Her eyes almost look red. I think it's because of the red dress.
Her eyes are orange, and she's got like purplish lips and very gray toned skin. Like she's gray.
Wow.
Yeah, and I painted her dress. I thought her dress needed some love, so I painted the broken heart on her dress.
Oh.
And the dripping heart. So
well done.
She's one of the things that people notice and are either like, why do you have that?
Yeah.
Or they're like, oh, she's cute. She works. She belongs here. But yeah, she's my girl.
Wow. Nice. She is beautiful. Creepy, but beautiful.
Yeah, and like, I don't know, I just couldn't leave her there.
Yeah.
And there was, I don't want her to hear, but there was more beautiful girls there. Some of the other ones in the box had like elaborate dresses and they look newer and stuff, and I did not care for them. I wanted her.
She's special.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Thanks for sharing. Wow.
Yeah. Me and Marjorie go ghost hunting now.
Nice.
Yeah.
When was the last time you were at Gray's Island?
Um, I went not too long ago. Yeah, I went in October.
Okay.
Yeah, I went in October to take our friend John.
Mhm.
Um, and he walked around the statue and stood her back at her, and he didn't feel anything. But I mean, she doesn't have a hand anymore, so
Well, she could
can't
still have
can't tell you.
a ghostly hand.
Yeah, we should add a stick or something.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Put a
So I
glove.
mean, yeah, and he like, I'll send you the picture. You'll get a laugh. Like I took a
Yeah.
picture of him while shaking her hand stump, and like he's dressed a little bit like a politician, so that was like the joke. Like politicians getting mixed in with urban legends.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, so we had fun. It was a good little day, and yeah, we pulled up and there was two men there with dogs. Um, and they looked like they were business dudes or whatever.
Mm.
So I was like, oh, I don't know what's going on here. And then I heard recently that they're expanding one of the corners. So I think those guys
Oh,
were talking about which tree we can, either cut down or move
yeah.
or whatever. Because there's still people being buried at Grace Island. So
Oh, wow. Right from
yeah,
the 1800s to now, that's amazing.
yeah, it's really, really cool. And like I said, it's just so beautiful there. It's definitely a place that like when I know people that come to town that kind of have a spooky edge, I'm
Mhm.
like, "Oh, you have to go see this place." Like, outsiders need to see this place if
Yeah.
you're into spooky stuff. Like, yeah, yeah.
You should start a business at Halloween time when you go on ghost walks.
Yeah, yeah, ghost hunting tours. I believe there is a ghost tour in Moncton, but I
Okay.
don't think they go as far out as Gray's Island. They'll do the few locations in town, um, which sure, like they all have an interesting history and stuff. Um, it's just it's so populated all the time. There's
Yeah.
always people there. So I feel like maybe for a paranormal team to really get a, a clear vibe or a clear reading of the place, you would need the place to be almost empty, right? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Like there's a few. The Capitol Theater is one of them, and that place is spooky.
Oh, I know. I used to go there a lot as a kid to see movies and,
Yeah,
um oh, yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Especially going to the bathroom upstairs. It just
Yeah,
it's a very, very cool building. I don't even know how old it is. I know it's pretty old, but beautiful staircase,
mm,
and, um, yeah, just, always gave I didn't like using the bathroom then.
no, and
As
there's technically 2 bathrooms. I've been sent to another one, and I remember the first time that I was told, "Yeah, you just go down that hallway." I was like, "Alone?" Like, "Where are you sending me?" Like,
Yeah.
I don't like this hallway, and, like, you go and then you come into this room that's like, almost like a conference room. Tucked in there,
Yeah.
there's, like, a bathroom over there, like, yeah, it's weird and spooky, and I don't like being on the balcony. I feel like somebody's gonna push me off.
I've never been to the balconies, but
Oh,
I've
the
always
top
wanted to.
floor?
Yeah.
I didn't like it. I made the mistake of wearing heels for an event, and I'm
Oh,
already tall enough, and I was up there, and I had, like I'm not afraid of heights, but it was almost like I was afraid of heights for a minute there.
oh, wow.
Yeah,
Hmm.
I didn't like it. So now if I know I got seats up top, I'm wearing flats.
Yeah, yeah. It's still being used as a theater though, is it?
There has been movie viewings there during, FICFA, which is like the French film festival here.
Oh,
Yeah, I believe they sometimes still use the Capitol Theater and the Aberdeen, like, Art Center.
yep.
Um, the last film really that I've heard that played there that didn't have an association with the festival was, that film.
Yeah.
And I know that there was like there's still a lot of plays. There's a lot of stand-up comedy there, a lot of music.
Hmm.
It's very active. They
Okay, good.
replaced all of their seats this past
Oh,
winter.
wow. Yeah?
Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
So it's all brand new seats that still look the part. You know
Okay,
what I
good.
mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. they thought it, well, at first I was like, they're gonna change the seats. Can't change the seats. Like, it's
Yeah, exactly.
gotta be the seats. But I saw them and I was like, all right, okay, yeah, I can get behind the seats.
I would absolutely love to investigate the Capitol Theater.
It would be truly cool. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
I would love to as well. I mean, I wonder if that's something that's doable. You give them a call and ask. I'm sure they'd tell you. Yeah.
Next
If
time I
they
go
ever,
home, if ever I get a chance, if you and John wanna come, you're more than welcome.
yeah, count me in. Like,
Yeah.
I would love to meet you even if we don't do
Oh,
any
yeah. Me
paranormal
too, me
anything.
too.
Let's
Yeah.
grab coffee.
Yeah. Sure, yeah.
Yeah. I believe John's gonna be back in Montreal here soon. I don't know how long he's gonna stick around on the East Coast.
Oh,
He's our
really?
little, yeah, he's our little traveler, little, yeah, wanderer, if you will. So yeah.
I keep thinking of the dog, The Littlest Hobo. I don't know if you're
Yeah, that's totally John.
he's
That's
always
totally
everywhere.
his vibe for sure. Like, he
Yeah.
just goes off. Like, he just went to Vegas for 5 days.
I
So
know. Wow.
yeah, like, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So is there anything else that you can tell us about, Gray's Island?
I think at the end of the day, we just need to remember that it's Jenny's resting place.
Mhm.
It's Jenny's statue. And like, if anything that we can take from this story is, cemeteries are spooky. It's cool to go there. Be respectful.
Yes.
Be respectful.
Very
Yeah.
much so, yeah.
Mhm.
Because there are people, their final resting places.
Exactly. And for me, more than that, it's where people still come see them.
Yeah, I
You
was gonna
know,
say that too,
their
yeah.
soul might be gone elsewhere, to some degree. Sure, they're resting here, but, their brother and sister or uncle or mom or whatever, they might be coming to see
Exactly,
their
yeah.
family here. So yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's their way of, grieving and having closure, and,
Mhm.
sometimes they talk to their loved ones there,
Yeah.
so, yeah,
Yeah, I have
it's
a
very
friend, and
special.
when I get the chance to go see his resting place, I talk to him out loud like he's sitting next to me. So, and
Yep.
yeah, yeah.
I
He
do
he
that with my
thought,
mom. Yeah,
yeah, and it feels good, and I think they hear us. So,
I think so too, yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Mm,
So that's Jenny's story.
that's Jenny's story.
Mm.
Well, thank you so very much for sharing that, I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you
Um,
for having me.
any final thoughts, or do you want to tell the audience where they can find you?
I can be found on Instagram under Arianne_French. I will soon be posting the links and stuff to my YouTube. I'm gonna be filming like an intro video because I kind of want to give the lowdown to everybody when they show up on, on the channel.
Yeah,
And yeah, the ball's gonna start rolling. So there's gonna be fun stuff on there. And yeah, you guys are all welcome. Come find me.
awesome, I'm looking forward to that channel very much.
Yay. Thank you so much for supporting that.
Yeah. So
I'm
again,
new
thank
to
you so
this. So
say again, sorry?
said I'm a little new to this,
Oh,
so
yeah. Well, thanks again, and, hang tight, we'll just chat for a couple of minutes after I say my farewells to the audience.
cool.
There you have it, folks. Thank you so much to my special guest tonight and UPRN 107.7 New Orleans. And remember, if you enjoyed the show, please like, share, and subscribe. So, again, if you want to have recommendations for guests or topics, drop me an email at paranormalheart13@gmail.com. Until next time, take care of each other. Much love to you all.